I can do better. Thanks very much, Daniel. Time now for business. We are going to be talking about new data from the Bank of Ghana suggesting that banking sector fraud has hit 1 billion cedis. That is as of last year. Plus, a look at domestic tourism and a new drive to get people into the Greater Accra region. That after this. All right, welcome to Talking Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. We are live across our social media platforms at Joy Prime TV, on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. We want to begin with new data from the Bank of Ghana suggesting that fraud cases in the banking sector have shot up astronomically. We are talking about 1 billion cedis as of last year. Now, compare that with the 115 million cedis in 2019. There is more in this report.
The report showed that the increase was as a result of what the Bank of Ghana describes as notable increase in high values of attempted correspondent fraud. It again showed that there was significant increase of staff involvement in fraud cases, especially when it came to suppression of cash. These staff accounted for 56% of the fraud cases and 93% of the reported cash suppression. The Bank of Ghana was worried the data recovered over the years showed a persistent trend of staff involvement in these fraud cases, despite numerous notices of caution sounded out to the banking industry in almost every fraud report issued since 2017. The total number of fraud cases reported for last year stood at 2,608 compared to 2,311 fraud cases reported in 2019. Representing almost 13% increase. Fraudulent withdrawals came up as the second most reported case after the suppression of cash. The Bank of Ghana argues that the high involvement of staff in these fraud cases can be attributed to the absence of corporate governance structures in some sections in the banking industry, resulting in the lack of accountability and transparency in their activities.
Well, we are getting reaction to this story from banking and finance expert Dr. Benjamin Amma, who is blaming the rise in fraud cases to weak controls in the banking sector's internal systems.
In a broad sense, bring in the issue of corporate governance. But then the issue of fraud, and especially what is being reported by BOG, has got to do with more of the operational side of the bank. And that has got to do with the weakness in the internal control system that these institutions may have set up. The controls are supposed to check the behavior of the officers of the bank. And if these internal control systems are lax, then you have the officers of the bank getting themselves into some of these wrong behavior. So yes, there is corporate governance as the big thing, but then if you want to deal directly with it now, they have to look more into the internal control system that these banks have and how effective these internal control systems are performing as expected. Now, banking is becoming more of open banking now, where third-party service providers are now getting into the mainstream banking system infrastructure to provide some level of service or support. Now, what is happening is that if you have third parties also contributing to the service delivery, they don't just tackle it from the bank's point of view. You must as well also as a regulator look at what these third-party service providers are providing. So that when you are building the firewalls are not just to the banks, but you extend it to the third-party service providers like the fintech companies that now have direct or indirect access into the database of these banks, into the system of the banks. Right. So they're going to have an end-to-end full value chain firewalls in the system. If not, a bank will be okay by way of internal controls, but a service provider, a third-party service provider may have weak control system that these fraudsters can then use to attack the bank from their point of view. So it's about the entire ecosystem being tightened up so that the fraudsters cannot have.
All right, and so finally for us, for this segment, we are going to talk about the domestic tourism drive by the Ghana Tourism Authority. It has actually deployed roofless coaches across the capital to transport tourists to see some of the historic sites or beautiful sites here in the Greater Accra region. It's dubbed the Tour Accra Initiative, and my colleague Charles Aite has been speaking with Jones Aaron and Nelson, who is head of PR at the Ghana Tourism Authority.
Of the promotion that we started. So in terms of domestic tourism, we are encouraging Ghanaians to travel, to take a tour, take a holiday. You realize that the average Ghanaian hardly travels except attending funerals or going for parties and anniversaries. So what we want to achieve is this. One of the ways that we are using to promote domestic tour is city tour. So as we embark on this city tour, we are saying that at least in the region that you live in, you need to know about one or two attractions. So as we go around the historical and cultural places as well as iconic structures in the metropolis, we are telling our fellow Ghanaians that, look, we have these monuments very important for you to know. And when you know, you can also educate your other colleagues, and then we all come on board. Of course, this has come as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which hit the tourism industry, very hard. And the numbers for international, figures, it dwindled if you look at 2019 to 2020. So we are saying that the way forward is domestic tourism. Of course, if you go to other countries like Asia and the rest, you realize that domestic tourism is their backbone.
All right. So, what remains the routes that you're going to be applying this morning? Which routes are you going to be applying?
Sure. We have an approved route. So from here at the Accra Tourist Information Center, we'll go through Kentakita, you are exchange here, through the police headquarters, down, then we'll go through Oxford Street. From there, we hit Osu Presby. Then we meander our way through the Stadium Road. Then we go through Lotteries, Bank of Ghana, Wesley Church, down there. And then we meander our way as well to fire service through Jamestown. Of course, when we get to Jamestown, there are exciting scenes, historical and cultural places that we'll have to visit. So at Jamestown, we'll do a stopover and do a tour of the Jamestown. We have site guides on board. And then we'll pass through the art center. Briefly, we'll drive through we'll come back to Mokola, the law school area, of which we'll do we'll be going slowly for people to attract. We also attract them. We tell them about the fact that, look, the city tour is very, very interesting and that you need to be on board. And then from there...
Great initiative by the Ghana Tourism Authority. That also means that we have to develop our domestic tourism infrastructure. And I actually found out yesterday that we have a waterfall at Dodowa. So even if you're thinking of somewhere to go during this weekend, maybe you want to check that out. That is Talking Business this morning. My name is Daryl Kwao. Keep following us on social media at Joy Prime TV. Also, read the latest stories on myjoyonline.com/business. Beyond the Headlines with Daniel is up next.